Hi there, welcome to Unreal Counseling. This is episode 11. I'm Lisa Ryan and I'm here with Sabrina Joy, and today we're going to talk about priorities. Oh my God, I talk about priorities all day long in private practice, and it is amazing how spouses perceive their spouse's priorities compared with how they actually think they're doing. So, when you were married, what was the most important thing for you in terms of like priorities?
So I'm divorced, but I did. It's hard to say because I'm divorced. It sounds kind of like, did you do it right? But I did try to focus on, I did try to make him my priority. Obviously our kids were also, but, I did try to make it known that I hope I never made him feel like he came after them. And not to say that they're not important, of course they are, but I did feel like I did try to be intentional about making him feel important and not neglected is what I'm saying. So, while of course maybe there were other issues, but I think that I did try to make him feel like he was a priority for me. Because
no wonder I never saw you in my office, okay? Because what I hear
trust me, other people did.
Oh my God, she makes raising kids a corporation.
Right.
If there's any time left for me, it's like breadcrumbs.
Right.
And oh my God, I hear it all the time. And I will hear a lot of other people say, all they do is work, and there's never time for us. I'm an afterthought. I'm just like a foregone conclusion. Oh my God, some of the terrible, painful things that I hear people, they feel it's like invisible in their marriage. And sometimes they even make themselves invisible in their marriage because they think that is what is expected. So I hear, I will often ask couples, what do you think his priorities are? What do you think her priorities are? And I would get funny answers like the dog. I hear that a lot.
Right.
The dog, or the gym, or his friends, or her mother. Oh my God, it's funny, but it's not funny.
Right.
So what I ask people to do, and I got a lot of pushback on this actually, you may not have been one of them, is first thing to do is self-care. Now, everybody who knows me knows I am not into selfish people, like not at all. I'm not encouraging selfishness. By self-care, I mean get your teeth cleaned, have a physical, look after yourself, read a book you've always wanted to read, you take a class, go back to school, look after yourself. There's a reason why when you get on an airplane, a flight attendant tells you, put your mask on before you put your mask on for your kids, because if you don't look after yourself, everything else is toast.
Right.
So self-care. Secondly, your relationship. Whether you're married or not is kind of inconsequential. Your relationship comes next, if it's significant, obviously, because as I see it, particularly if you're married, you could be married for 65 years. That's a big commitment. If you're raising kids, you're kind of like done, either by 18 or 22, if you're raising strong, independent-minded people who can solve their own problems. They call when they run out of money sometimes, but compare like 20 years to 65. And divorce is so painful for kids, and it just is such a rupture with the family that it's really more important to take care of each other first, and then kids come third. And so many people are like offended, like, You put kids third. You put kids third. You're encouraging him to go to the gym before you're encouraging him to like look after his own children. It's like, yeah, kind of am. Kind of am, because I want him to, you know, be his best for you always, and I want you to be your best for him always, and always save enough energy for each other at the end of the day. And after kids is work, which I also get a lot of pushback on. How do you expect us to pay for the mortgage? How do you expect us to pay for this? How do you expect? Well, I mean, then maybe you're living beyond your means. Which is always popular.
Right.
And then lastly, friends and extended family.
Right.
That's a hard one because, you know, friends are important, families are important, everybody's close to their siblings and their moms and dads, but in the scheme of things, when you're trying to make a decision, you can't figure out, you know, should I go left, should I go right? If people remember that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, it makes things easier. You know, I'm not encouraging anybody to ignore their dog, you know, or to never go back to the gym again. That's not what I'm saying. So, would you be one of those people who would say, "Are you crazy?"
No. I understand all that. I agree with I think all of that actually. You know, of course, not perfect, but I have always tried to I don't know if I've made myself a priority. That one might be a little hard for me. Maybe a little bit, you know, basic, you know, self-care needs probably. Maybe he thinks otherwise. I'm sure he does if you had a conversation with him. But I do think definitely, you know, and it's hard to say because I have 3 kids and people might go, "What are you thinking?" And I may be unpopular, I don't know. But I do think it's, you know, your spouse before your kids. And I don't, you know, my kids are probably like, "What?" You know, they might be listening to this going, "What are you talking about?" But, I don't mean to neglect either one, of course. It's not saying, but the issue is that if you neglect your spouse, then, you know, you're probably not being the best for your kids. You're not setting the best example for them. And so you kind of have to put your spouse first. This is how I feel, this is my opinion. In order to be the best for your children. It's just like the plane analogy that you just said, that you just mentioned. You know, how are you going to put the masks on your kids if you can't breathe?
If you're unconscious.
How is that working? You know, it's like, it may sound great, but that makes sense.
Right. So everybody dies. That's what happens. Everybody dies.
Right. So, you know, I do agree with that. You it's hard to imagine that for some people, but or to comprehend that. But I do agree with it. I do think that your spouse needs to come first. You know, and then everything else kind of falls afterward. After that, you know, kids right after. And at the end of the day, you know, we're not going to neglect our children.
No.
They're going to get what they need. Their needs are going to be taken care of. Their needs are going to be met. And sometimes...
And they're going to learn how to meet their own as well.
Right.
Which I think is an asset. Right.
Right. So, you know, so I just think it's just you're going to be best. You're going to be better for your children if your relationship is better. And if you're neglecting your spouse, then it will show, and it won't be, you know, it won't be good. You won't be setting a good example for your kids. Sort of a detriment to them. So,
and you're providing a role model. You know, you're actually by example, you know, teaching sons and daughters, you know, what a strong relationship, what a strong partnership looks like, and what love looks like.
Yeah.
And what respect looks like.
Yeah.
And so you're raising a son to learn how to be loving and respectful towards the woman that he chooses to spend the rest of his life with. And you're teaching your daughters that they are no one's carpet, okay? They are no one's queen. They are a member of a partnership of 2. Right. Which I think is a beautiful thing. also, there are a lot of kids who feel such a burden and a responsibility to always be the focus of their parents. Some parents like try to, they perceive their kids as an opportunity to do their lives a better second time around through their kids, and that kind of robs children of an opportunity to be who they are.
Right.
So, couples and couples and couples, I will say, where did you go to dinner last night? Our kids wanted to go Italian. Like, well, what did you want?
Right.
Well, I mean, that doesn't even occur to people. So these poor kids, when they get to be 22 and they're out in the real world, they can't believe that they actually have a boss that says, this is what I expect, shape up, and by the way, your opinion, I could care less.
Right.
Right? Because they weren't raised that way. This is like new information to them, and it's like shocking, and they get their feelings hurt, late in the game. So, I wouldn't want to be the focus of my parents' life 24/7. To me, it would be too much pressure.
Sure.
So.
Yeah, I agree. I think about like my kids, 20 years from now, let's say, or I mean, I think about my parents who are divorced, but I don't want my kids to be I don't want to be a burden to my children. So, I want to try to be the best that I can be for them now, and be the best example for them, and I think just in my in my relationship now with Stephen, for example, we've talked about affection, and we're not married, which we've been together now for about a year and a half, but we've talked a lot about affection around our children. And at first it was kind of like, well, do we kiss each other hello, or kiss each other goodbye, or do we say I love you? And he has 2 children, and how do we handle that? And it's kind of like, I think that we do, by the way, because we think it's important to be that example. Yeah. The world can be so cold, and affection sometimes can be frowned upon. I'm not talking about like making out in public, I'm just saying like loving affection, words, warmth. And just affection, warmth, and yes, exactly. And so, those are that's important for us. I wouldn't say it's a priority, but it's important for us to show them that 2 people can love each other, and it's okay. And it's like, we want them to want that one day. Yeah. We want them to want a relationship with someone that's loving and warm and affectionate and positive, and so that is definitely
how to respond when someone is warm and affectionate with them. Right. It's essential. Right. It's essential. Right.
So and we agree on that, which I'm glad for. But I do think it's very important. Especially I come from I'm divorced, and so I want to try to be right. I kind of feel like I want to right that wrong in a way. And so that's, I'm trying to do that now. It's hard sometimes, but I'm trying to, so.
It's also hard if you focus so much on work and so much on kids. And if you're not sure where your priorities are, take a look at how you spend your time. That's usually key. Because many people, and they mean well, and they're trying to do the best they can. They're just giving everything they've got to work, everything they've got to their kids. And by the time 8 p.m. rolls around, no one has anything left for each other. They just want to climb into bed and read a book, and please don't bother me. Everybody's been like sucking my energy all day. Leave me alone. And so it's really important to schedule your day so that you always have just an hour at the end of the day to touch base and say, how was your day? How did that meeting go? Were you scared the whole time, or did it finally, disappear? And did you get involved with what you were doing? And you just have to know the players in each other's lives, and how did that go? And if you don't have the energy and you just want to be left alone once you finally get the last kid into bed, you can't really have a great relationship.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. It's hard.
What do you do for self-care?
Probably I like to work out. I run. I go to the gym. So that's probably my favorite thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
Also, now that the weather's getting a little bit better, I do really enjoy like sitting out back in the sun. That's like my favorite thing. I love that so much.
Get your vitamin D.
Yes, I just love it. It makes me happy. I could sit there and do nothing.
Yeah.
I could sit there for an hour and just, I don't know, scroll on my phone or read a book or something like that. But that's very enjoyable to me. Sometimes I will get a manicure or a pedicure. That's probably, I do enjoy like working out. I think that's probably something that I do. When I'm starting to feel like down on myself, I know I have to work out. I'm like, well,
interesting.
Yeah, I'm like, how long was the last time I worked out? Or 4 days ago? Oh, I gotta work out.
So
that's how I keep myself in check.
Are you saying that the pattern is if you haven't worked out in 4 days, you start to tank? Or is it that when you tank, you have a recipe for lifting yourself back up again?
Kind of both. Okay. So if it's been a few days and I'm starting to feel like if I'm one day just having a bad day and I'm like, oh, I'm feeling like crappy or whatever, I'll think, the first thing I'll think is, did I work out? When was the last time I worked out? Because it does, it changes like my whole attitude. My whole mental state changes. It truly does for me.
Yeah. There's biology that backs that up.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I remember, a few years ago when I was going through a tough season, and I had told my best friend, I remember it was like January, and I told her, I'm really feeling depressed. I'm really like, I don't know what to do. And, I said, maybe I should go see a therapist. Not that had not seen them before or one before, because I've seen plenty. But, I just didn't know if that was the way I wanted to go at that point. And so I was like, what I'm going to try? I'm going to try spinning. I've never done that before.
Great idea.
I've always been a runner. I go to the gym, but I've never done spinning.
Yeah.
And I said, I'm going to try that.
Yeah.
And I remember I was hooked. I became hooked for a good couple of years. I actually I eventually got a Peloton last year, but it really helped me. I did it 3 times a week. I loved it. It helped me so much. And so for me, through that season, which is really hard for me, that's what I did.
Yeah. It changes your brain chemistry.
It did.
It gets you pumped.
Yes.
And I think it makes you feel proud of yourself. That you didn't let yourself down.
Right.
God, I hate that feeling when I make a commitment that I'm going to do something and then I don't do it. It's like, really? You didn't show up for yourself? Really?
Right.
You only got half of it done? That's a bummer.
Right.
So, interestingly, when people come into my office and they're feeling sad, I'm not really quick, unless they're, we're talking clinical depression, and I really don't see a lot of people with clinical depression. Just situational depression.
Right.
That's my go-to. How much are you moving? That's how I begin.
Right.
Are you walking? Are you running? Are you going to the gym? Could you try that for me first? Before we start thinking about calling your a primary care physician to see if there's something pharmaceutical that you can do, because moving just makes you feel so much better. It changes your brain chemistry. It changes your circulation, but it also, I think, which is just as important, at least for me, a person who rarely moves. I turn pages in books.
But you're also going all day. You're seeing clients all day.
Well, thanks for the same. Nobody would accuse me of moving too much, but I do schedule time off because of that's how I avoid burnout. Which I've done numerous times because I've just got a lot of balls up in the air.
Right.
So I will schedule Saturdays and I will go to the beach and I will just look at the ocean and I will chill, and I live in, well, as you well know, I walk around all day when I'm not with clients. I live in earbuds. And listening to books, I'm listening to music, I'm listening to podcasts. So that actually, when I'm home, not necessarily here, but when I'm home, that's my chill time.
Right.
which I need because I'm an introvert. So when I expel too much energy, which is oftentimes the case, I have to get my energy back quietly, where extroverts get their energy from other people.
Right.
And I would suspect that you need, to get your energy internally. It's sort of like a gas tank that you have to fill back up.
Yeah.
Extroverts will call a friend and say, "Oh, I had the worst day.
Right.
Meet me at the pub for a drink."
Mm-hmm.
I would never do that. I would have to have a tank before I called a friend and said, "Meet me for a drink."
Right.
Because I wouldn't have the energy to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So self-care has to do with quiet time for me. The ocean, reading books, learning. I'm a huge learner.
Right.
I don't retain 90% of what I learn, but I don't care because I enjoy it at the time. I love hot tubs. I will open up the windows because there are windows right next to my tub, and the steam will be like rising, and I'll have lit maybe 16 candles, I kid you not.
Right.
This is in January. I'll open up the windows so that I've got like the cold coming at me with this like hot tubby.
Yeah, that sounds really nice.
It's like self-care.
Right.
I learned that when I was really poor. That was the only thing I could afford, with baby oil. And I've done it ever since. So what do you do for self-care besides exercise?
Last night I actually spent about 2 hours reading a book. Until I was so sleepy I just had to okay, I'm done. But it was great.
Fiction? Non-fiction?
Non-fiction. It was a book. I think I mentioned
Self-improvement.
Self-improvement. I actually did. I mentioned the last podcast that we did about investing. So
There she goes again.
There I go again. So I've been reading this book that I got last week at Barnes and Noble, and so I was reading it last night, and I got sucked into it, and until I just was tired, and I just But that for me, it was great. It was quiet. Everyone was in bed, and I just sat there with my book, and
It's an investment in you.
yeah.
How lovely.
And so it was nice, and then I just I fell asleep. I was so tired, and I actually slept the whole night. It was actually great.
And I think that makes you a more interesting person too. I mean, when this podcast is over and when I get some time, I am going to pick your brain and find out what you learned. So I don't have to read the book.
Right.
You can just tutor me one-on-one. Okay.
Right, like Cliff Notes.
Okay, so to wrap this up, priorities. At least consider it. Don't take everything we say, at face value. You make up your own mind, but I often recommend self-care, taking care of each other in your relationship, because you remember two families. If you're married with kids, you have a family of two, and then a family of the two of you plus kids. Okay, so after you take care of each other in your relationship, then it's children, because we have to keep them breathing at all times, and work. We have to keep a roof over our head. We have to keep food on the table, and plus there's personal pride in doing your work well. So that's important, but it's fourth. And fifth, I hate having to say this, but friends and extended family. I mean, friends are so important, but comparatively, I think they have to come fifth. And we're all busy. We all got so many balls up in the air that, now that my kids are raised, it's easier for me, to check the other boxes. But, it wasn't always.
Right.
So, and I know you know about that as well. So, any last thoughts that you have before we go?
No, I think I agree with, all of that. And, I think it's just being intentional. Just sometimes you gotta just be intentional. I am a big journal person. I write everything down. I try to be a technology person. I mean, I'm a techie, and what we do here is very techie.
Yeah.
Everything we do here is involves tech.
For sure.
So, but I write, as you know, I write everything down. Goals, plans, appointments, ideas. Everything gets written down. Now whether I get to it or not is another question, but I do write everything down. Reminders and stuff. So I think it's just important to just be intentional about, things and priorities, or else life happens.
It's a lovely way to look after yourself. Right. You know, it's therapy. Mm-hmm. It's therapy, especially when you're broke.
Right.
It's great therapy. I ask lots of people to journal, you know, while they are seeing me as clients. Mm-hmm. You know, get better as soon as possible. Find your answers as soon as possible. I mean, I keep a journal. I sometimes have no idea what's going on in my head until all of a sudden I'm looking at the monitor. It's like, man, I've been thinking that. I've been hanging on to that. I had no idea. Mm-hmm. So it's interesting, and it's good. It's good for you because you can like take that toxic stuff and like dump it on.
I was just gonna say, you just dump it on it, right?
Yeah, and it's kind of like you know gone. Right. One last thing I do before I go, when something's really worrying me, I have like worry boxes like all over my house, my little tiny like my mother's like tiny little Limoges things, and just little. I will write down whatever it is that's like keeping me up at night on a little piece of paper and put it in the box. So psychologically I feel like, okay, well I've written it down and I put it someplace, so now I don't have to carry it for a while. And it sounds so stupid, but for me it works, and it might work for you out there too. Give it a try. So I always love talking with you, Sabrina. I gotta go. I'm probably late for my first client. Yep. And they're not gonna be surprised. And I look forward to speaking with you out there soon. Write to us. Tell us what you think. We always want to hear from you. Thanks and take care.
Bye.